In Jurassic Park 3, we get our first look at the parental behavior of InGen's Velociraptors. These raptors that have spread out and bred on Site B are shown to be incredibly protective of their eggs, which leads to the logical assumption that they took care of their infants rather well and possibly in a similar manner to that of the Tyrannosaurs in the Lost World. Social behavior among pack members is further examined in Jurassic World, with a clear leader being dominant over its peers. And Jurassic Park also gives us some insight into coordination and chains of command as well. The darker actions of these predators are only touched on briefly in the first film, as well as its sequel, The Lost World, giving us small instances of disruption and violence among their ranks. But a glance into the works of Michael Crichton tells a very different tale. During the events of the second novel, Sarah Harding comes across a pack of 9 raptors that are currently on the hunt in the wilds of Sorna. Carefully viewing the animals from behind, she soon becomes witness to their newest kill and takes note of how different these creatures act to what she's researched in modern animals. Her predators in Africa always had a very predictable kill site with its own stately organization. At the heart of the kill were the biggest predators, namely the lions or hyenas, which would feed with their young. A little farther out from the carcass were the vultures and storks, patiently waiting their turn. And still further back, jackals and other small carnivores waited for everyone else to finish. Different animals usually eat different parts of the kill, with hyenas and vultures eating bones, and jackals nibbling what's left of the body clean. This pattern gave the result of very little squabbling or any fights breaking out around the food. But these raptors were far different from any behavior Sarah had ever seen before. This mass of predators had created a pandemonium and somewhat of a feeding frenzy out in the open. These dinosaurs would immediately rip and tear the flesh from the animal they'd just overtaken and only pause to snarl and snap at one another while their prey was still being downed. Dr. Harding witnessed one animal inflict a deep flank wound after biting a fellow pack member, which resulted in the other members of the group hissing and snarling at the victim before it was forced to limp away badly wounded. The animal researcher also saw a young juvenile raptor about half the size of the full-grown adults, pushing forward in an attempt to get a bit of this new carcass. But the adults would refuse to make room for it, and instead would bite at the young animal and force it away from the food. This smaller dinosaur was often obliged to hop away from the claws and jaws of the grown-ups, in fear of becoming prey itself to such savage beasts. Harding could see no infants at all in this wild skirmish. She was viewing a society entirely composed of vicious adults. She noticed the patterns of old bite marks and scarring that had healed around their flanks and necks, giving us insight into the never-ending struggle these primal carnivores would engage themselves in. While there was nothing special about animal infighting among modern creatures, the current chaos she observed in the Velociraptor pack was unmatched to her past research. Animals normally fought for food, territory, or sex, with the victor occasionally wounding the loser in a serious struggle. She'd known some hippos to severely wound other males during fights for harems, but Sarah couldn't fathom how deadly the lives of these prehistoric beings must be. The wounded raptor that she'd seen retreat earlier decided to sneak back amongst its peers and bite one of the others that was in the process of eating, which led to this dinosaur snarling and slashing at its attacker with its long toe claw. In an instant, the injured predator was eviscerated with pale white intestines pouring out of its belly. This animal fell, howling to the ground, where it was soon met with 3 other adults that had turned from the kill and decided to tear into this new fallen body with rapacious intensity. This terrible sight forced Sarah to close her eyes and turn away. She didn't understand this strange world she'd been introduced to, but felt it best to move on and leave such a murderous uproar. Socially speaking, the Velociraptors featured in both Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park as well as its follow-up, The Lost World, feature cannibalistic behavior during key events in the author's thrilling tales, and each book does a notable job at painting a bloody picture of how terrible these small carnivores really are to the reader. The violent infighting of these dinosaurs has not been shown to the film audience outside of the first 2 films, however, and it would seem that the more savage ways of raptor life are currently not going to be observed in any new movie on the horizon. A major part of Jurassic Park's plot revolves around a velociraptor known as the Big One, that killed all of the other members of the Pride except for 2 to use as subordinates. And the Lost World Jurassic Park actually gives us a full-on fight amongst 2 raptors that were in pursuit of Sarah Harding herself in the InGen worker village, with one raptor actually killing and possibly eating the other. It's been 20 years since this battle was shown on the big screen, and while I think the chances of a similar battle being depicted in the future are slim to none, I'd like to mention that I would love to get another glimpse at the pack behavior these creatures share with each other. And I think I'm not the only one that would love to see how these animals respond to disagreements and disputes amongst one another again. Now, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for watching this video. If you feel like I deserve it, I would appreciate the like and hope you consider subscribing if you're interested in seeing me again. I'll see you on the next video, guys, and as always, take it easy.